In today's video, I'm going to be using watercolors to paint this barn scene. My brother took the reference photo, and I thought it would make a nice subject for a watercolor painting and a gift for his birthday. But before I sketch onto the watercolor paper, I decided to make some changes, beginning with the foreground fence. I don't think I'll use that. And I think I'll add some additional color to the trees on the left-hand side, and maybe throw in a couple of horses. For the front of the barn, I really want to shift my hues between warm and cool, and then also keep that bright window there. I'm going to keep that back hill of trees pretty blue. I want it to set back, and I also want to keep it as loose as possible. The metal roof of the barn is really the star of the show. It's the largest, brightest object, other than that small window there in the middle. I'm going to have some fun with shifting hues and some texture with that. I start out by taping down this 14 by 20 Fabriano 130-pound watercolor paper. I don't always tape down my paper, in this case on this plexiglass board. Sometimes I'll use clips. Generally I use the clips for larger, maybe full sheet pieces, but smaller pieces I tend to use the tape. The clips can kind of get in the way, especially if you're doing very large brush strokes. Arm movements, they tend to catch the brush. So in this case, I'm taping down and we'll see how it goes. I use a collection of watercolors from M. Graham, Holbein, Daniel Smith, and a few others, but mostly M. Graham in this case. I'm going to start the process by taking Ultramarine Blue and painting in the sky around the clouds. Think of it as negative painting the edge of the clouds. I'll also use a little bit of yellow ochre in the process. I do enjoy painting skies and clouds. I find that I need to resist the urge to go in and make changes to things. Put down a brush stroke and leave it alone. The yellow ochre gives the sky a nice color shift, so it's not just all one tone of blue or one hue. While the sky dries, I can work on the foreground using some bright colors as the underpainting, some yellows. I'll be covering some of it up with some darker paint later, as these are really my highlights for the area. Now I'm going to work on the metal roof of the barn. This is very, very light. It's almost water with a tube of ultramarine blue waved over it. It's nothing much, but just to tone the white paper down a bit. I want to maintain the highlight areas of this roof. I want to maintain that brightness. I want it to really punch through. I let the barn roof dry and then started to work on the face of the barn. I'm going to go in pretty dark here to start with. As you can see in the palette there, I have a good mixture of warm and cool co-mingling, and I can run my brush through that. As I paint the side of the barn, towards the bottom I need to remember I want the grass to grow up into that shape. So I need to negatively paint that grass or the edge of the grass. That same shape will be repeated in the treetops, where the treetops of the distant hill meet the sky. I don't keep Phthalo Blue on my palette normally, but I do use it occasionally. And I'm going to use it in this case because it offers a nice hue shift in the blue range. Since the Phthalo Blue is more green leaning, those two blues will offer a nice contrast in the dark areas. Now I'm going to start on the trees on the left-hand side. And as I said earlier in the video, I'm going to brighten the colors, vary the colors a bit, maybe make it more autumn. I work quickly to get that distant hill in. As I said earlier, the top of the trees sort of mimics the bottom of the barn, where the grass comes up into the barn. So it's a repeated pattern. Just like the front of the barn, I'm varying these colors, warm and cool. I'm using this 1-inch flat brush to add in some more dark pigment. Using the same brush, but dried off, I'm going to lift some of the paint just to add some lighter highlights in different shapes to that background. Working back down in the midground, I'm adding in these posts and fence rails around the area of the trees. Using this needle brush, I finish off the trees, putting in these small calligraphy marks for the branches and twigs. Now I'm trying to keep these horse shapes as simple as possible. I just want the viewer to see them and think, oh, there's a couple of horses back there. I don't want them to be so detailed that it becomes a point of interest. Using a mixture of Ultramarine Blue and Burnt Sienna, I start to add in some light shading for the metal roof of the barn. Tilting my board up, I'm getting ready to add in some of the rust marks. And I'll be using rust. Quinacridone Rust as the rust. A little goes a long way with this. It'd be really easy to overdo it. I'm trying to place these marks in such a way that it looks natural, but not overdone. The roof of the barn really didn't have that much rust, or at least not that concentrated, but I thought it would add some more interest to that large area. Now I'm going to add in some more texture to the foreground. I think it was a little too hard-edged, so I'm going to add some water and soften some of that foreground. After mixing up some dull greens, I'm going to start working on the tree on the left-hand side, keeping it transparent as possible so that light can shine through. That tree is actually foreground. It's in the foreground, and it's hanging over the picture. It's sort of framing things. So there aren't any shadows on the roof. This is one of my favorite tree making brushes. It's a Chinese calligraphy brush, and I've somewhat abused it over the years by smashing it into the paper like I'm doing here, but it really makes some nice random marks. Now I'm adding in some warmer tones to the tree to complement the trees on the left-hand side. Using the needle brush again, I add in the calligraphy marks resembling twigs and branches. I can get a variety of nice random marks using the belly of that same brush. I occasionally use a razor blade to create these small, thin lines. This is a piece of scrap paper just to show how it works. You have to be careful to obviously not cut the paper. So push just hard enough to get the pigment on the paper. But you can get some really nice straight, flat lines. You can also scrape and get some longer lines and thicker lines. I'll be using this technique for the rooftop to show some of the seams. I'm selectively placing these lines. I don't want a continuous line going across the painting. Now I'm finishing off this painting by adding in some darker pigments to some of the rails and posts. Now I'm using some of this warm pigment to tie the left side of the barn with the right side. Well, that's the finished painting. I hope you enjoyed watching me paint Homestead, this barn painting for my brother. I enjoyed painting it. If this is something you enjoyed, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if it's something you like. We'll see you on the next one.